genre-wise, feel very out of place, but I'm doing my best, you know what I mean? Probably one of the biggest learning curves I had. Don't try to kill the person that you are in your music. Don't try to manufacture a persona. I think with COWSWEATER, I had about more than half the album's worth of songs that went into the recording process and never saw the light of
Just
day. Like,
didn't.
I want to contribute what I can to sort of bridging gaps between like experimental and commercial. I just want to have an audience. That's it. I want to have a consistent group of people that are listening to my music, whether that's a few hundred or 1,000 or however many. I'm good with it, man. I want to make stuff that people talk about and remember. Every once in a while, I will have that like go out into a thunderstorm with a sword and get struck by lightning, and all of a sudden, the touch of God type of thing. That's just some imagery there. That didn't actually happen.
I believe it. I see you standing out in like some field holding up a sword. Are you a music artist trying to find a way to get your music on as many streaming platforms as possible? Then check out DistroKid. DistroKid is a super user-friendly and super easy-to-use service that will make your music available in stores like Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Amazon Music, YouTube, Snapchat, everything. Everything you could imagine, it's available. People will even be able to add your songs into their Instagram stories. DistroKid helps you with the distribution, monetization, and promotion of all of your music. Use the link in the description of this video for 7% off any DistroKid package you want. Pick from musician packages designed to help artists get their own music out there, or even get a label package where you can manage up to 100 artists from one profile. So that's more for like managers, labels, and you can also get the musician package that I mentioned earlier, which is more for artists, producers, things like that. And super easy, and you can get 7% off any package right now with the link in the description of this video. So once again, if you're looking for a way to get your music on as many streaming platforms as possible, I'm talking any platform you can think of, get DistroKid and get 7% off right now with the link in the description. Back to the program. My guest today calls himself Sacramento's mistake of a songwriter. He's bringing his sweater era to an end during this summer with his performance at the Concerts in the Park of Sacramento, and you may know him from his song Revolving Door. Please welcome Cole Steef to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. How about you, man?
I'm good. Why? What's with the moniker like Sacramento's mistake of the songwriter?
I don't. I just feel like there's when I've looked around the Sacramento music scene, I've always felt like there's nowhere I really belonged. I'm not to say that I haven't made a lot of friends. I love all of you in Sacramento. Just man, genre-wise, I feel very out of place, but I'm doing my best. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And so, to someone who hasn't heard your music before or heard of you, how would you describe like your genre and the music you make?
Oh man. It's somewhere in the realm. I usually describe it as like alt rock, funk rock, post punk, those kind of three things. Lyricism, very cynical, very melodramatic, very unconventional. But if you like to bop your head to some weird stuff, I guess that's me.
Cole Steef. Yeah. And like if there was someone who now wanting to get into what song would you recommend as like an intro to Cole Steef?
Um, well, Revolving Door is my most popular. But I think uh a track that's probably a little bit more like archetypical of my sound. I'd probably go with Point Five, which is the closing track for the record Cow Sweater. I think that really encapsulates what I try to do best.
Awesome. Yeah. And so, I mean, let's get right into it since we've been
Yeah.
talking about it. But your album Cow Sweater came out almost 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and you've sort of been like enjoying that since, playing it live, things like that. And so, what can you tell us just about that album in general, the meaning behind the name, things like that?
Yeah, well, the entire process for the album started by accident. I had sometime around 2021, I had a songwriting partnership with a friend that fell through, and I got really mad. and I wrote this song. I went out to my car and I wrote this song, "Left You on My Own," also known as Leomo. If you look at the record, pretty shortly after that, I wrote "Stay Stay." Um, Both of those songs being done in like a month and a half consecutively, like which was faster than anything I had ever produced before. So
Yeah.
I looked at that and I was like, dude, if I could do it this fast, I should just make an entire record. So that's what I spent the entire next year doing. Um, but the record is me really getting a lot off my chest that I've wanted to since pretty early in my youth, probably going back to like my preteen years. Things that I haven't been able to express, as many people who know me in real life know. I've, always been a bit of a recluse, been a little bit reserved, been a little bit quiet. Um, haven't really been able to stand up for myself for a long time, and uh, and thus people have just kind of looked at me as the awkward kid in the corner with not much going on. And so the record is really me trying to get a lot of those things out. With the emblem of the cow sweater in particular, that was a bit of an arbitrary choice. I bought the sweater sometime a couple of years ago, and it was just sitting in my closet, and I needed a title for the record, and I just thought, well, if I call it cow sweater, I can finally bring this thing out.
Bring a use to the sweater.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I'm surprised at how quickly, like you said, you got Leomo and Stay Stay out, and then
Yeah.
clearly it took some time to finalize the album, get the other songs done, things like that. With Revolving Door, which I'm sure came in that like almost year process, like you mentioned, is now your biggest song on Spotify. Was there a moment that you really thought like, okay, this is the song, or like had a good feeling about it, or did it sort of surprise you that it took off?
It really surprised me. I mean, I was trying to be super maximalist with all of my production for a long time because I thought that was the direction that music was going and everything. And the direction I should have been going. But I knew there was something about it when I finished recording. It was I knew that it was a standout. I didn't expect it to be my most well-received song, but I knew just from like the bass line and the very, very simple electronic drums. Um, yeah, yeah. It was I saw something, but yes, it does surprise me.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And
Yeah.
now like going back to these like you said recluse years, these like maybe early teen years, maybe even before that. What first got you into music or made you think like, hey, let me try this out. Let me try making some music.
Yeah, well, music didn't come until a little bit later in my youth, probably around 16 or 17 years old. Before that, I mean, I've always been a very creative kid. I mean, I drew a lot when I was younger. I never got good. Um, but I was, into like making videos and little short little movies and stuff when I was younger. Most predominantly I was in musical theater from the time that I was 6 years old all the way till I graduated high school. So I was always singing, but it was never something I really took seriously until I got older and I found myself getting pushed further and further into the spotlight. And I noticed a lot of the feedback I was getting was about my vocals, which is not what I considered myself at the time. But it got me to start taking it a little bit seriously. And I don't remember why, but at some point when I was like 15 or 16 years old, I was like, I want to try and like listen to some real music because you gotta understand my taste at that time was like so nerdy, so all over the place. It was like any song that became a meme, any song from a video game, Weird Al Yankovic,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
like
Meme
it was
music.
it was meme music. I was into meme music. But I think I told myself at some point I wanted to listen to actual music. And so I was recalling some of my days as a kid listening to what my parents were playing in the car. My dad used to play American Idiot by Green Day, which although that record doesn't really hold the same weight for me now, it was really inspirational to me at the time because it was the first time I realized that music had a purpose and could really create a cultural impact. I picked up the guitar not long after that. I started learning on this little quarter-sized classical guitar that we just had in our house for some reason. I don't remember where we got it from. Eventually got an electric as a birthday gift, and no intention of writing songs at the time until I started playing with some friends. And while that wasn't going very well, no progress was getting done on that end apart from what I was making. I decided, all right, I guess I'm going to do this on my own and learn everything. And that's where I've been since.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
that's a common like pitfall of bands when in general, but especially when people are younger. It's like
Yeah.
it seems so fun, and then after a month, if even that, like
Yeah.
people sort of just like stop giving it a bunch of
Yeah.
focus and
You
attention.
realize there's a work part of it, you know, there's a discipline part of it, which if you're
Yeah,
just trying to hang out with your friends, you're probably not going to get
yeah,
anything done.
yeah, and it is so once maybe you branch off into solo stuff or while still trying to have this band work, if there's someone else in that situation of like, okay, I'm ready to try this music thing out, what tips or advice would you give to them?
Um, it's a good question. Um, Big thing for me, probably one of the biggest learning curves I had was don't try to kill the person that you are in your music. Don't try to manufacture a persona. Um, I mean, the thing, and that's really hard because when you start out, you're trying to like, a lot of what you write is going to be very obviously in line with whoever your influences are, and you may not have very many when you start out. Um, but it's very common, I think, for people to sort of try to be like whoever it is they're inspired by. I can say that when I was starting out, I was really trying to like model myself after Billy Joe Armstrong and you know, sing in a way that wasn't really me and write about
Yeah,
things that weren't really me. Um, and trying to kind of especially kill that part of me that grew up in musical theater, because that's affected the way that I perform and I sing and my quirks. Um, but embrace your roots. Like that, I think is one of the biggest things um, as you're approaching songwriting. Even if it feels a bit uncomfortable in the moment, it's going to be a lot more worthwhile.
yeah, yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely an important message of like it's like the whole stay true to who you are sentiment of like when a lot of times when an artist is trying to put on a persona or appear one way, like it's pretty clear that it's not authentic versus like if you're just there making what you want to make, like that's usually
Mhm.
what ends up taking off. Hey, if you're like me and you're interested in the YouTube or creator space, you should check out The Publish Press. The Publish Press is a completely free newsletter founded by YouTubers Colin and Samir. They host their own podcast talking to some of YouTube's largest creators. They've edited some of the best content I've seen on YouTube, and now they're sharing their knowledge about the YouTube space with you for free. The Publish Press comes out 3 times a week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, with everything going on with your favorite creators and platforms. And like I said, it's completely free. Just enter your email address to receive the Publish Press whenever it comes out, and that's it. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below, sign up to the Publish Press, and get all the info you need on the industry. Starting out, you go by the name TheSteefBeef and eventually change into who you are now, Cole Steef. What was the thought process behind that name, or when did you know that it was time to change?
So I was the Steve Beef in 2019 on SoundCloud. Um, w- uh, for some reason back then, I really wanted to remove my first name from my stage name. I don't understand why. But one guy called me the Steve Beef. Um, and I don't know, as I was kind of my style was kind of weaning away from what I was doing at the time, I was very much like I was very much kind of like ripping off Oasis at the time. That was my music um during the TheSteefBeef era. Uh but I think I came to a realization as I kind of went dark online with uploading music and was just kind of taking time away. I was like, you know what? People have actually called me Cole Steef in my life. That was a nickname I had, in my teenage years. And I figured it would be, it would be less awkward if I just put a name that people actually call me in my stage name. So that was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, I feel like every big artist out there has gone by some awkward bad stage name at some point, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they try to put in the past. But
Yeah.
for you also, has there ever been a moment and you're doing great with Cow Sweater and you're pretty new
Mhm.
relatively to music, but has there been a moment yet that like really just stalled you creatively or made you think about like taking a break from music?
Um, I've been going through that a little bit in the process of making my current record, as a matter of fact.
Hmm.
Yeah, been a lot going on in my personal life and also in general with like being around the live music scene it's a really tough thing. You're gonna go through a lot of very humbling experiences to like
Yeah.
nobody you invite showing up, to people walking out of the room as you play, to people, yeah, being pretty negative towards you. Um, and uh, yeah, that a lot of that has kind of affected my energy for this record. I have a decent amount of songs. I'm still gonna put them out. I'm still gonna finish them up. But as far as having the will to write more than I have already recorded, yeah, that's it's it's gonna be what it is,
Yeah.
which I don't think speaks to the quality of the songs by any means. I feel I've got a good feeling about them, but yes, absolutely. If things are going
Yeah.
downhill, like taking a break is like th- one of the best
Super
things you can
important.
do. Yeah.
Super important. Yeah.
Hmm.
Because I feel like it is like on the one hand, you do want to wait until you're inspired to make something and things like that. But it's this whole like constant movement or like grind mentality that a lot of people have now that like if you're not constantly releasing things, like you sort of feel like you're falling behind in a way or getting forgotten about. And I think it's important, like you said, to just like take time,
Yeah,
let it be whatever it ends up being,
it's
like
it's so
take
much
time
it's
and
so
work on
much
it.
better it's so much better to like plateau for a time than to just keep forcing yourself
Yeah.
to deal with the the ammunition that's being thrown at you, and just, I don't know, allow yourself to decline, which is, yeah, been a hard thing for me to come to terms with, because I'm very diligent, very ambitious. But it is necessary for anybody that is going through that. It is very if it feels like it's time for a little while, it probably is.
It's probably time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned working on this upcoming record or a new record.
Mhm.
What can you tell us about that? Anything you're willing to share, not willing to share is fine, but just any information we can get on that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the next record is going to be called Velvet. I'm hoping to get it out sometime in the fall, ideally around August or September. Um, stylistically, um, I think it's going to be a little bit more of a deviation from Cow Sweater. It's going to be a lot less funky, a little more art pop, I think. A lot less electronic drums than on the record. I've been getting some drummers to come in because I can't play them myself. Um, and yeah, you're gonna see a bit of a different era of a different side of my life, whereas Cow Sweater is very much the awkward, disturbed teen. This is I don't want to give too much away about who the new
Yeah.
personality is,
Yeah,
but it's gonna
no
be a bit
problem.
it's gonna be a bit different. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Cow Sweater is more like the past or who we were, and this is more
Hmm.
present, future looking.
Yeah, a little bit. Mm.
Okay.
I
Awesome.
don't want to give too
Awesome.
much
And
away.
yeah, yeah. No, no problem. And with I mean, you say like going from electronic drums to live drums and just the general like process of making an album, which is obviously so different from like a one-off single or record. Like you still want to make sure it has a common theme. What has that creative process been like for you, or how have you gone about making this album?
Um, well, I conceived it sometime around the point where I was recording Cow Sweater. I was pretty sure of that being the next step. Um, the thing about um the thing about writing my songs is like not all of them start the same way. You know, I
Yeah,
like it could be me coming up with a hook and then developing off of there. It could be me coming up with a verse or a guitar line or a keyboard line. Like there's a million different ways that the songs start out. Everything in common has been, setting time aside to write and setting time aside to flesh out these ideas. And a lot of this process, to be honest, and the same with my last record, like there's a lot of tracks that end up getting thrown out. It's there's a lot of writing, then recording and realizing I don't think this is gonna fit. And
yeah,
taking it back out. Like I think with Cow Sweater, I had about more than half the album's worth of songs that went into the recording process and never saw the light of
just
day. Like,
didn't. Yeah,
yeah. It was like 7 songs. But yeah, generally speaking, it's there's not really there hasn't really been like a set routine for like writing the songs just on the basis of where they start. Uh, but yeah, I've tried to spend anywhere between like 2 weeks to a month and a half in the studio. Um, just fleshing these ideas out. I'm using a home studio from an old classmate of mine, and I'm in there by myself, free of charge.
awesome. Hey, it's Heroek, and this episode is sponsored by me. Well, kind of. If you don't know, I recently started a clothing line called Quest Clothing, which you can shop right now. I'll leave some pictures here on the screen, but we got the core collection, which is just this sleek black and white design on a bunch of products. And then we also have some more like merch style stuff with cover arts for my songs and things like that. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I'm really excited that I now have it. And so expect a lot more collections, a lot more designs coming out soon. I'll leave a link to it down below, and if you want to stay up to date with any new releases or anything like that, follow at Shop Quest Clothing on Instagram. So go get cool designs like this, or even this, and you'll be helping me support all of this, the podcast, the music, everything. Plus, it just looks cool. We even got this nice big letter design on the back. Look at that. Look how cool that looks. So head to the link in the description to get yourself some Quest clothing, and make sure to follow at Shop Quest Clothing on Instagram for updates with new collections and stuff like that. And now back to the episode. With these scrap songs or songs that don't end up making it into the album, is it something you would ever revisit or like maybe release down the line, or do you think it's just like, hey, these were good practice, good learning moments, but we're gonna keep them on the shelf?
I've, I've listened to some of them from time to time, and never say never, but
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of the scrap tracks kind of represent um me at an era that I just don't really feel like
An
is
area
going
you're
to be
trying to
very
grow out of.
progressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like moving forward, so I mean at the moment with all of those tracks at this very time probably going to just keep them in the shadows for now, but never say never.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe someone will hack me and leak them one day. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's crazy that like I don't know about you. I'm a big fan of 21 Pilots, who just came out with their big new album, and they're like once again was leaks and stuff, and it was to the point of like I've thought it for a while now, but really started thinking about it recently, and it's like I just genuinely don't know how people get like these leaks from like big artists, and it's like it always baffles me and such how like it's like almost no matter how hard they try, it'll end up there with like the age of technology and then it gets spread through TikTok and everything. So what do you think about like such this very like digital or social media world that the music industry is in?
Yeah, it's rough. It's a very it's especially a dog eat dog. It was a dog eat dog world before. But
Yeah.
I mean in the era of social media, it's even more so. It's incredibly tough to figure out how to, be um uh, to market yourself in such a unique way and but also try and keep it like appealing for, what audiences are already into like it's a thing
Yeah.
that I've struggled with really hardcore, which is why I've had like a huge focus on the live music scene. Probably going to have to redirect my attention to social media a little bit more as I'm going to be taking a break after July when we do concerts in the park. Um, yeah, man. I still don't understand it. I gotta be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's like I feel like it's the kind of thing where the moment you understand it, like something about it changes, or there's some new feature, new platform that you got to start
Oh yeah.
working with and stuff. And
Oh
then
yeah.
like I feel like, during the
Mhm.
pandemic, obviously TikTok was like this new thing,
Yeah.
and for the first time we saw artists like get big off of it and no one really knew what was happening. And then like
Hmm.
just now as people sort of figured it out, now there's all this talk about like banning or just all this
Yeah.
unsureness of what's gonna happen. So I feel like as important as social media is, like at the end of the day,
Hmm.
the music itself is like the one true like the one ongoing indefinite
Yeah.
thing, while everything else can come and go, change however it wants and such. And yeah, it's crazy.
No, it's
And
interesting.
and it was always like that, just in different ways in the past. Like if the marketing was still a problem in the past, it was just through
Yeah.
radio or like
Hmm.
getting a PR person, things
Hmm.
like that. And so it's just changed in the way that it's hard.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say the internet like continues to change, especially with just platforms and whatever. Like I don't think I could have had the foresight to see like, like TikTok has kind of kept a lot of people off of YouTube in a way, and
Yeah.
it's like the sort of content that people are aiming for is mostly going to be on that platform, which is, there's a lot of people who have been making content on YouTube for years, especially, artists trying to promote their own stuff. Um, and it's like, yeah, what can we predict from like this point on?
Yeah.
It's so much more. You're right, marketing has always been a problem, but like now with the internet, things continue to like change in ways where you have to like redirect all the mental, things that you've learned work online.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I guess with, all the all the songs you have, I mean, they're mostly Cow Sweater and the singles from that, but you do have other stuff as well. Is there any one song that like you maybe had an idea for or the inspiration and you made it, and like now down the road that meaning has sort of changed for you?
Oh, the meaning of the song has like
Yeah, yeah,
changed.
like any song that meant one thing when you made it and now has grown and changed into another meaning.
Um, I don't know about that. I think that there's songs that have I have a song that's definitely become more meaningful to me. I've appreciated
Okay.
it more down the road. That would be The Sinker. I remember recording that song. It was it was the first song I with this mic here. And I just remember hating it. I remember like I was like, these lyrics are too straightforward, probably too uncomfortable for people to listen to, and these vocals just don't fit in the mix. And like, but everybody in real life talks to me about that song. Like that, it's one that
Mm.
that a lot of people remember apart from like Revolving Door. And you know, as I've let it like, sit with time, it's become a lot more of an important track to me, which is why I think it's um people shouldn't get if they're approaching songwriting and trying to get really serious about it, not so worked up on making every line perfect, every section, every melody so perfect, because you never know. And I've made a video about this before on my TikTok. But you never know what it's going to mean to you down the line. You don't,
Yeah.
or to
Uh,
other people.
and I think a lot of artists get obsessed with like trying to make every line meaningful or like have some purpose behind it. And I think it's okay to, even if you're trying to make a deep, honest song, have lines that are just there for the song. Make it catchy, make it work. And not everything has to be like groundbreaking or mean something to somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
And going forward, like what is sort of the level you want to reach with music? There are artists I've talked to who are like aiming for the stars, like want to dominate the world, and then people who are just like, if it's my career, if it's the main thing I'm doing, I'm happy with that. So what's your like overall goal with music?
Man. I will continue to be a better songwriter. I want to continue to try being progressive and do what I can, to sort of um not to say I'm going to do this, but
Yeah.
I want to contribute what I can to sort of bridging gaps between like experimental and commercial worlds. Um, but on top of that, I just want to have an audience. That's it. I want to have like a consistent group of people that are listening to my music, whether that's like a few hundred or 1,000 or however many. I'm good with it, man. I
Yeah.
want to make stuff that people talk about and remember. That's it. No matter how
Yeah,
many
that's
people that
awesome.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, and which like is I think super important and like almost an overlooked thing nowadays. Like I feel like a lot of people just see like the numbers and get wrapped up in that, not fully thinking through the fact that like that means there are actual humans out there like following you and listening to
Yeah.
you and such, which is such an important thing, whether you're connecting with them in person or just through your career. It's there's nothing quite like having a fan base or people who will support you in what you do. And so in a similar vein, I suppose, like looking forward, aspirations, that sort of thing, if there was an artist that you got the chance to collaborate with, who would you want that to be?
Oh, don't ask me that, man.
We you can toss out a bunch of answers. It doesn't literally just have to be one.
God. Oh. Oh, the thing is, I don't really know. I mean, like, like, there's people that I know in real life that I haven't collaborated with, like,
Hmm.
too. There's, obviously people that are well known and pretty famous. Um, it's also in general, it's hard. At this time, I'm kind of I'm very much a collaborative songwriting, collaborative work is tough for me. That's a thing.
Got it.
I think eventually, I can get there probably will be a point where that's going to be very new and exciting for me. But at this time, while I'm in a position where I feel super comfortable working on my own, I don't know if I can give an answer.
Yeah, no, that's completely fine. And I
Mhm.
I honestly respect it. I love like I'm the kind of nerdy guy who like every time I'm listening to a new song on Spotify, like open the credits, see who worked on it,
Yeah.
things like that. Because I'm so curious as to like solo stuff versus collaborations and things like that. And again, back to 21 Pilots, who I love, like
Yeah.
they're very much solo most of the time with them, and then even now they've gotten somewhat more collaborative, not even in features or anything like that, but just with like
Mhm.
songwriters and producers. And even then they keep it to like a pretty tight circle of like the people who have worked with them in the past, people they trust and
Yeah.
such. And so I absolutely respect it and think that's important because when you have however many writers and three producers on a song, like it sort of gets lost as to who did what or whose vision it is and whose music
Yeah.
it really is versus like when it's solo, that's just you. That's your
Yeah.
artistic expression.
I see myself at this time probably getting in a lot of arguments and nothing getting but and it's not because like I would like not out of respect for like anybody else's vision. It's just it's hard. It just is when you're used to working by yourself, you know?
Yeah, and some people are wired to work by themselves and do better
Hmm.
working by themselves. Like not everyone's a collaborator and so and things like that. And so shifting to a similar question, but more in a live performance space, because you know I know you love to play live and you have experience playing live. Is there like a bucket list of venues that you want to play your music at one day?
No.
Okay,
I I
okay.
um I I want to get to as many cities as I possibly can. Re with uh geographically and financially. Uh I mean specific venues, yeah, not really. I'm happy
Yeah.
to play any time
And
as long as
anytime, anywhere.
yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And I think that's important. Like when like plenty of people have come on this podcast and the advice when back to the advice question, they're like, play live, get out there, like just
Hmm.
be there for people to see. Because I think when you're only releasing music or only online, it's there's always going to be that disconnect between you and people listening or people following you versus like a live setting, there's not much like that, and you can't really get better than that or like more in tune or close than that.
Yeah. Definitely a combination though of you want to be in the live scene, you want to get the experience before especially trying to do a little bit of touring, but yeah, like I said earlier, the internet is huge. That is you got to have a bit of a combination of the two to really forward. And that's something I've had a bit of an evolution on in terms of my beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Hmm.
And I mean, again, I keep hitting you with these tough like opinion hypothetical questions, but I'm
Hmm.
just curious, is there a song you have right now? Maybe it is Point Five or Revolving Door or anything like that. That's your favorite song, whether that's the sound of it or just like what went into the process of making it.
Hmm. Um, I think, man, I think I may have to pick something from I have to pick something from the new record, I think, that isn't even out.
Awesome. Yeah.
I have a track right now called Trouble Dome, and I wrote it in a very short period of time, 8 nights, barely edited from the first draft. Uh, and I haven't. It's a full song, 4 chords, really good melody. Uh, it's just unlike anything I've really tried. Um, so yeah, that's one I'm really excited for people to hear.
Awesome. And I think is it in that same sort of like stay or Leomo wow, what word am I looking for? Vein. That's what I was trying to say. Um Sorry about that, but in that same vein as like just you got hit by inspiration, made it pretty quickly and just feel confident with what came out of it.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. It definitely sounds a lot different from those two songs.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure
It's
the sound
very,
is different.
very much more of a ballad, but yeah, definitely.
Is that a common thing you find happening, like these spurs of inspiration that really get you going, or is it usually this like methodical album process?
I usually have is that eat away at me for a very long time that I eventually very methodically, put time aside and go pen to paper. Every one, but every once in a while, I will have that like, I don't know, go out into a thunderstorm with the sword and get struck by lightning, and all of a sudden, the touch of God, a type of thing. That's just some imagery there. That didn't actually happen.
I believe it. I see you standing out in like some field holding up a sword.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's pretty essential as a songwriter to try even when you're not super inspired. Which is more often than not the way my songs are written.
Yeah, I think it's important to like as much as a lot of people I know preach this like wait until you're inspired, things like that. I think there is something to be said for like just sitting down and making an effort and being like because then things will come to you. Like if I'm not inspired, don't just sit around waiting to become inspired. Sit down and really try to do it. And then who knows, maybe in 5 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, a couple days, inspiration will hit and then you'll be like, oh, let's try that out. Let's make that idea come to life.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to like the thing I talked about earlier, which is like trying perfect people that and I'm not saying that it's necessarily a bad thing to wait for inspiration. I want to make that very
Yeah,
clear.
yeah,
It is if that is what you want to do and you're okay with that, and you're okay with not having written a whole lot of songs, like that is you have the absolute freedom to do that. Um, you may never finish anything, but yet everything's so perfect. That's because that is waiting for inspiration. You're waiting for the moment to touch you where you can make this line, this all of the elements of this song perfect.
yeah.
Just
It is. It's funny that you bring that up because I did pretty recently work with someone like that. They were happy to. It was more or less their first time working with like a producer role. And they were like, I'm happy to do this because they explained they were very much a perfectionist.
mhm,
Um, and like would like have ideas for things, come up with like drafts, and then sort of just sit there and like or like tweak with it, trying to make it perfect, and not much would ever come out. And so they're like, I really like this thing where we're gonna keep it a collaboration, but like
mhm.
we get in a studio together, a room together, record, and then they're just like, go do what you think works for it.
Yeah,
Go make it sound how you think it should sound, and then to come back to me with like not obviously a final product, but like come back to me with a draft, and I can give notes, and then again it's just like out of my hands, and collaborate that way because it seemed like when they were in control, they, which I've had happen myself, like always thinking something can be better, or always trying to change it up, and
yeah,
it ends up like years down the line, and that's not much closer to coming out.
sure, yeah. The other thing I think a lot of people don't think about is trying for so long can actually in some cases make it worse. You know what I mean? You're trying to tweak it so much that you're changing the line, and then your exhaustion is going to be reflected in what you create a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
figuring out the point to say stop is
Yeah,
like,
finding that good
yeah,
point of initial idea and authenticity and like listenable final draft.
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I mean, those are all the questions I had for you today, Cole. So thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited for this upcoming album, Velvet. If people are listening to this, go check out Cole's Spotify, listen to COWSWEATER. Imagine Cole standing in that field with a sword. And if you want to, feel free to shout out or promote anything you got going on, Spotify, social media, anything like that.
Yeah, you can find me anywhere. Instagram, uh, that's Cole Steef. I've got a couple of shows coming out if you're in the Sacramento area in California or closer. Uh, um, and yeah, stick around for Velvet in the fall. Thank you so much for having me, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, like I said, looking forward to this album, and try to catch Cole live if you can before the sweater era comes to an end.